Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. It could be in Asia in the middle of the morning. And welcome to the State of Women Institute Mother's Day Summit, where we're going to be talking about blockchain for a better world. I am Geneviève Lavelle, and I am your moderator. And I am so happy to be surrounded with so many ladies who are really at the top of the game. And I think that I could not ask for a better panel than this. We are going to be running for about 90 minutes. And because, as you all know, this is about mothers, and several of those ladies are in Europe, and it is mother duties have to call, putting the children to bed, feeding them, and getting them to stop whatever they're doing, playing games. So what we're going to do is we're going to have two parts of the panel. So we're going to have those in Europe go first, and then we'll be joined by a couple more ladies, which are running a little late, but that's no problem. And we will also have in between the opportunity for you to ask any question. So without any ado, I am going to start with the first person. I will call names because I'm not sure how the panel is looking to everyone. So we'll start with a few minutes for introduction for everyone who's on stage. And then we will go back and start talking more about really how blockchain can be used for a better world. So Zara, you're on first.
Thank you. I'm usually the last one because my name is Zara Zamani and it's double Z alphabet T. I'm always.
Oh, muted yourself on accident, Zara.
Oh, like I was muted. Okay. So So hi everyone. I'm Zara Zamani, and I'm head of disruptive technologies at Metavice, Sweden, IT consultancy firm. And in my technical expertise, I'm a blockchain architect, and I also am a lecturer in blockchain adoption in University of Halmstad in Sweden. So that's a quick introduction of myself.
Thanks, Sarah. And next we'll go with Kate Bocherel.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Kate Bocherel, as Geneviève says. I'm based in the UK. I am working with applications of blockchain and the use of blockchain and cryptocurrency and this technology to advance and look at new processes and new ways of doing things in industry and across all sorts of elements of social impact. I do a lot of speaking and training at all levels, from university all the way through to industry. And I also author books, including I co-author the What's Hot in Blockchain and Crypto series. I have a book on blockchain and cryptocurrency, which is used for MBA teaching these days. And yes, I also write cybercrime thrillers on the side, which is a lot of fun.
You're muted as well,
Thank you. Yes, I realize. You know what? I'm going to jump to you, Linda.
I'm Linda Goetz. I'm privileged to have borne twins between the time that the Bitcoin white paper was written and when the Genesis block was mined. So that's my bit of motherhood connectivity to blockchain. I've had the privilege of leading the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce, and I'm currently the Executive Vice President and co-founder of DFM Data Core, where we're looking at supply chain, the dynamic freight matching industry, specifically in the United States, but I believe the governance and infrastructure we're putting in place will be a value prop globally. Just a pleasure to be here. Have had the opportunity to work with Kate on what's hot in blockchain and crypto. Fantastic history of what's happening in the innovation in the blockchain space, and I'm very focused on the ethical implementation of emerging technologies and working to help construct the universal framework of things And that's where I believe blockchain is going to be playing a very important role. And we need to have strong voices that are focused on ethical implementation. So that's what I try to do. And we have some wonderful innovators globally that are working towards that as well. So pleasure to be here, Genevieve. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. And next, I would like to have Helen Disney tell us about herself.
So hi, I'm Helen Disney. I'm very privileged to be on this panel with some fantastic women. And I love the title of the panel as well, because I actually threw my whole previous career out around 6-7 years ago because I believe that blockchain can deliver us a better world. And what I started doing after initially getting involved in understanding Bitcoin was I created a platform called Unblocked, which does exactly that. It tries to unblock the topic of blockchain for senior leaders in business and in policy. My previous life, I worked in public policy think tanks and spent a lot of time talking to policymakers and regulators. And I realized that these technologies are so fundamental, but most senior business leaders and policymakers still don't really understand all of the implications of blockchain, and whether that's on social impact, whether it's on economic impact, or whether it's just on our day-to-day lives. So I believe that blockchain can put the power back in the hands of the people to control their own money, to control their own data. And that's very important to me. So I'm really happy to be here and talk a little bit more about that as the panel goes along.
Thank you, Helen. And Elena, I'm not going to butcher your last name, so I will stop myself there.
Yes, thank you, Genevieve. My name is Elena Sinelnikova. I am a co-founder and CEO of CryptoChicks, educating women across the globe in blockchain technology and help them to start businesses. And also I am recently, not that recently, but became a CEO of Meeties.io. We're creating this startup, we're creating a platform for people to use blockchain for business, for life without any technical knowledge. So that's this is what I do, and this is what my mandate is.
Thank you, Elena. And last but not least, Rosaline, or Rose, maybe.
Yeah, Rose, I find Rose the easier to remember. So I'm an economist based in Kenya. I currently work as the Director of Growth and User Acquisitions at Pesabase. Pesabase is a financial remittance startup which links the Australia to East Africa remittance corridor, and it's built on Celo. My journey as an economist in the blockchain space began about 3 years ago when I started asking myself what was the potential beyond blockchain, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies. And in finding answers, then that was the proverbial rabbit hole for me. So my career has literally just taken leaps and bounds within the blockchain ecosystem, and I am so delighted to be part of today's panel.
Thank you, and we welcome you. You know that you're now a part of the group, so we do this often. And starting this, it's been wonderful. We also have joining us a little bit later, Anu and Dr. Anino. And once they join, we will have them introduce themselves. But first, I'd like to take the conversation with Kate. She did, not only is she teaching the new NBA, but she's also a radio star. The other day, she was on BBC4, and that was a lovely interview. And Kate, I would love you to tell us a little bit more about your work and also some of the stories.
Okay, yes, I kept that one very quiet. Yeah, the BBC now know where I live, and so when they want a commentator on blockchain or cryptocurrency, they ring me. Sometimes they ring me and say, who do you know in Southeast Asia who knows about NFTs? And I'll go through my book and go, here you go, here are all the introductions. But this time they wanted me, and I was talking around, actually, funnily enough, with the cybercrime thriller side of things, crypto and cybersecurity, which was enormous fun. But I love digging into the stories, as you say, around blockchain and crypto. And the things that really excite me are the things that are new and are something in the future. I'm a big sci-fi girl. That's why I write sci-fi thrillers. And one of the most exciting things I came across when I was researching for the big textbook was the idea that blockchain is something that really enables a new future of work, and it's enabling things in really very different ways. But if we boil it right down and we say that when we're working in any sense, we're being rewarded for the use of our assets or the use of our skills or the use of our time. And that's held true for everything that we do. And blockchain gives us a whole new opportunity in several different ways. So it gives us already the idea of a global marketplace. We have that with the internet, but we have that to a much greater degree with the introduction of cryptocurrencies, cross-border payments, the ease of transacting, and so on. So we suddenly have this global marketplace that's emerging for our skills and is gathering speed. Then we think about our assets. So it's easy enough to prove that you own an asset. I own this pen, it is mine. But NFTs, so proof of ownership on the blockchain, gives us the ownership of the assets that we can then use to earn. And the other thing is time. And we spend time doing all sorts of things. And one of the things that's more and more prevalent, and I've just had to kick my 12-year-old off his computer because he's been gaming and streaming. And I told him if he was going to spend so much time gaming, he should be earning money from it. So he started playing blockchain games. And he is starting to earn money. So we've got these three things: the assets, the skills, and the time. And what blockchain and cryptocurrency in their different forms and crypto assets gives us is that ability to have a real work economy that is truly global and underpinned by this fabulous new well, it's not new anymore, is it? Really becoming very well-established technology. And there's several different really good examples of this kind of thing around. So, I mean, one of the recent buzzes has been around crypto art. And what is that if not artists being finally paid properly for their skills? So I have a friend from school days who is a fine artist, properly trained fine artist, went to fine art school in London and so on, and who dipped into putting his digital art on blockchain, on those markets. So we start to see that he is earning from a much bigger marketplace, and he's able to monetize those skills in a whole new way. In terms of the time side, for gaming, there's some really exciting stuff going on here. I know for blockchain games, yes, my 12-year-old is playing around at the moment, and there's some really cool stuff around. In the early days, blockchain games was very much, let's make something with blockchain that's also a game. Now we're starting to see game companies and really experienced people coming through and making games that also involve blockchain. So my youngster's playing things like Axie Infinity. I play that as well. And he's been looking at Blanco's Block Party in beta. I think the 13 is normally the threshold for this kind of thing. But there is so much interest now from people. So Atari have bought into Decentraland, for instance. There is all sorts of, there are announcements literally every week at the moment of major games companies starting to move into blockchain. And what you've got there is you've got the investment of time. So in a game like Axie Infinity, that you're spending time playing with your little battle axes, and I have a team of battle axes myself. They're lovely little cartoon axolotls, and they're very, very bad at fighting, but I'm trying hard. But Axie is actually quite an interesting one, because that ecosystem of axes and the game mechanisms that are going on in this game are earning people money. They are earning people money to the point that there are as an entire economy in the Philippines that has managed to sustain itself during the COVID crisis by playing Axie Infinity, earning earning what they call smooth love potions in the game and selling those to others because the mechanic allows them to do so. There are people who've put down deposits on their houses. There are people who have earned more than minimum wage doing this. We have a genuine future of work example. And this week, Axie Infinity have announced a new play to earn initiative, which is just taking things to the next level. So we have really good structures coming through for people to earn from the time that they spend and the skills that they learn and they use. And then, of course, we have the blockchain proof of asset ownership as well. And that has implications not just in gaming, in art, in using ownership of assets and collectibles as an earning mechanism, but it flips back into business as well. So we look at things like there's work going on with, obviously, the work that you do, Geneviève, with Agri Ledger and with supply chains where, for example, one that I know of, the Demito chain that's working out of Singapore, they are using the asset ownership, the provenance of assets on the blockchain to help mitigate risk for trade finance. So to bring the blockchain provenance into play to improve existing work and to turn that into future of work for people within fruit blockchains in that particular instance. So they're using the records on the ledger to help people to gain finance, to discount invoices and all sorts of things. So it's not just gaming. Blockchain's doing extraordinary things for the way people work and distributing wealth in a hugely interesting way. And that really is an example of blockchain building a better world in whole new ways.
Yeah, you're so right. And actually, I should have said today, I spent my morning actually with financial sustainable finance, where they had 2 hours on tokenization. Grab some screenshots, and I will make sure to share this on LinkedIn once they have the recording out. But it was very, very interesting. And definitely there is a lot of application in ESG. So they were talking about digitizing the forest. So I think that it's almost, the only thing I wish is that I had thought of the word NFT instead of digital twin.
Oh.
But I wanted to know if anybody else on the panel wanted to sort of bring in anything with Kate, because this is supposed to be ladies, kind of like Clubhouse. So more than happy if anyone wants to bring in any additional thoughts, and it's an open forum.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said, Kate, especially about the teenagers earning money from their gaming. I think I've missed an opportunity here.
You need to go train yours.
I've got a 40-year-old that's unproductive right now and needs to be bringing home the bacon with blockchain gaming. But no, I mean, I think the interesting part, especially from the perspective of women, which is partly what we're here to talk about, is that, there's so much untapped potential around the world. So first of all, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies ushered in the ability for people to actually be their own bank and to own their own money on an app in a phone. As long as you've got a phone, then you can own your own money and you don't have to have a bank. Many places in the world where there is no banking infrastructure or people, are not fully banked, that means that suddenly people are empowered to have a bank account in their hand. And I think we shouldn't forget that. In a way, that's the first and most important use case of blockchain. But then obviously beyond that, now what blockchain is doing is spinning off into so many different directions. So we've already mentioned kind of creative industries, ownership of different types of property online and being able to trade and exchange that, or giving access to business owners in countries where maybe traditionally there isn't the mechanism to have access to finance to grow your company or even to get lending. And we've got these networks of trust now across the world where suddenly not only can you transact with somebody, but you can form part of networks of common interest, if you like. And I think that's what's really interesting about blockchain, is you can start to then say, okay, well, my goal is to share healthcare data around a rare disease, or my goal is to incentivize the use of renewable energy, or my goal is to help business owners in Africa get loans for their small businesses, and different types of networks can be built from the bottom up, with access to funding from people all around the world who may have, vastly more resources than those people would otherwise ever know about or have access to. So it's breaking down a lot of kind of barriers to entry for people. It's breaking down a lot of prejudice as well, because at the end of the day, the blockchain doesn't know if you're male, female, black, white, who you are. It's just about supporting your idea. And I think, from the creator's point of view, whether you're a writer, whether you're an artist, whether you're a musician, whether you're perhaps a street dancer, in Brazil, you can suddenly be making money from your creativity and your own talent in a way that you've never been able to do before. So I just think that's massively revolutionary. And that alone is, building a better world, whether or not we go on to talk about all the other things that the blockchain might be able to do.
So Helen, I actually wanted to also have you highlight some of the work you do. I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting you about 5 years ago. Can you believe it's almost 5 years?
I know, time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun. And it's been very for me to watch your journey, not only in London, but globally. And I would love for you to talk a bit about what you do with the whole education piece in blockchain.
Yeah, well, I think, it started up from really a simple idea, which was just that people didn't understand this. So how could they be educated? And my view was that it was a bit difficult to just talk about blockchain as a general concept, because it's sort of too bland in a way and too full of jargon. And, nobody really wants to be taught about technology as such, unless there's somebody who's developing who wants to learn development skills. So I took it from the perspective of, let's go to people's problem and then try to talk to them about how different solutions are appearing as a result of blockchain. So I started creating events that were around different themes. So we had events on blockchain and how it was changing philanthropy, events on how blockchain was changing healthcare, events on blockchain in the energy sector, events on blockchain in the creative industries. And then also I've done other events for other organizations more around investing and kind of crypto stuff. But I think that the point was always, what is the problem? So if we look at something like healthcare, one of the issues that we've seen through COVID is that healthcare is very fragmented and the data is very fragmented. And whether that's, supply chain data, so we don't know what's happened to why a vaccine hasn't turned up, or why PPE hasn't turned up, or why it's not the PPE that we wanted, or whether it's data about the patient themselves. What we've seen in COVID is actually the weakness of our systems, because they are so centralized and everything's organized in separate buckets and separate silos. And really, the data doesn't follow the patient. So normally, when you look at money, you can follow a money trail, but in health, you can't follow a patient trail very easily at all. No one really knows where the patient's been. They've been to many different places, and each place has a little bit of data about that person, but none of those places talk to each other. So, when you start talking about that, then people get really interested, because you can see how much it can make life better for us as individuals when we're ill, but also medical professionals. They struggle to actually share research data and important information about outcomes. Even wanting, to do good, they still struggle to actually get hold of the information that they need and share it easily. And, again, knock-on effect of that, pharmaceutical companies or academic researchers struggle to get the data that they need. So having this data repository in a way of blockchain, which, you're not going to keep all the data on a blockchain, because that wouldn't necessarily work and it wouldn't be a good idea, but you can use the blockchain as a kind of repository or sort of library of telling you where the data is held, and allow people to connect with each other. So they don't need to have a top-down system that links up the GP surgery and the hospital and all these different places. They can pull the data from anywhere they want, as long as they've got permission to do that. So I think that's a fundamental change in how we do everything. And that can be applied to a lot of other industries as well. Healthcare is not the only place where you have fragmentation, but many of our systems are centralized and are top down. And when I worked in policy, one of the issues I found was that makes everything incredibly slow moving. So I got excited about blockchain, because I thought it was a way of speeding that process up, because people could just start creating a network on blockchain, and people would be pulled into it because they would see how much value there was there and how much better it was than the way they were doing things. And then that would lead to an evolution, which would lead to a revolution. So when I talk to policymakers and business people, I try and start from that, which is what problem do they have? They don't know enough about their welfare recipients, and they want to understand more about them. That might be a government perspective, or in a business, it might be more about, I want to be able to offer new services, and this is going to allow me to do something that I've never been able to do before.
I think it's very interesting what you've been doing. And also, I think that the simplification of language also helps the policymakers from actually enacting policies which could have a negative effect. Because right now, as you guys will know, I'm one of those people who's going the whole NFT space. It's the wild, wild west. Love it, but I'm kind of scared because I don't think that we have enough regulatory, and the exchanges that we have are not regulated. So that really concerns me. But what I love with the work that you do, Helen, is that you're getting those like really staid people to actually break it down and be able to explain it to them. If they go, aha, now I understand how it affects me and how it affects me and my family, which means therefore we won't have negative policies, which will then stymie the whole innovation space.
To that, I don't want to dominate because other people have lots to say as well, but language is so important, and sort of definition taxonomy, because you see with something like stable, which is sort of one way of, I guess, translating cryptocurrency for the mainstream financial markets because it doesn't fluctuate too much in value. Stable coins have been defined differently by 4 or 5 different kind of government bodies or intergovernmental regulatory agencies. And each definition is slightly different. Same for crypto assets, the same for tokens. So, even unpacking something like non-fungible tokens, people don't really understand what non-fungible means if they're not monetary economists. And they don't really know what a token is. They think it's a sort of plastic thing that you use if you're playing poker or, putting in a charity bin at Tesco's, so non-fungible token in itself is a problematic word for me, but it has suddenly taken off in the press. So, maybe I don't need to do my translating as much as I used to.
Yes. And so next up to, sorry, Linda, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we've come a long way since 2012 when I first started interacting with the Bitcoin community. At that time, it wasn't really the blockchain community. And we went from, internet funny money, that perspective to now, the biggest population in the world having a CBDC that is not really based on blockchain, but actually built to interconnect with blockchain networks that, are going to, I saw that this is like hot off the press stats today. The digital economy in China is responsible for 36.4% of their GDP. And currently in the US, it's only 8.2%. And we are having a global transition. It's just going to be very interesting to see where those value propositions lie and how quickly in different countries. And if we can have this be, you said an evolution, Helen, that becomes a revolution. If we can keep it focused on the human being, regardless of where they are globally, rather than putting power into the hands of specific, companies or even countries, then I think we are going to be able to have blockchain for a better world, not blockchain for a better Facebook or blockchain for a better, China or better UK, or it's going to be truly blockchain for a better world. So I'm hopeful that we have the people and the focus to really push for that. But yeah, we don't have to do quite as much explaining as we used to, where there's more of an awareness of, what blockchain is, what NFTs are, and there's a fun, I'm going to show this just because it's one of those, can you see that? It's the Pi network. And they have 17 million pioneers engaged in a network that hasn't even gone to mainnet yet, because it's a platform where anybody can have access and, be miners and validators from your cell phone. And so this is the democratization of blockchain in a way that, if you didn't hear about Bitcoin, back in, 2010, you can now engage with blockchains that are just starting to get a solid footprint and will have more adoption and use over time and have fit from that growth. So, one of the educational pieces you're probably still having to focus on, Helen, is, hey, you don't have to own a whole Bitcoin, right? You can own Satoshis, you can own fractions of a Bitcoin. Don't be overwhelmed.
Everything to somebody yesterday.
Yeah. And for some people that's liberating. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought I'd never have a chance to do anything with Bitcoin because now it's, 50,000, 55,000 per Bitcoin. But, we're going to be counting things, I think, in Satoshis as this blockchain adoption cycle. I don't see it as a hype cycle like I did back in 2017 or back in 2013. I believe this is an adoption cycle. And I think we're focused, and I don't want to, Genevieve, I know I'm not like in this time frame, but we're going to have adoption because of fear of the known, not being blocked by fear of the unknown, which is what kept people out. And then fear of missing out made them jump in. We are truly going into the awareness of what's happening with the current system. That's the driver into the emerging blockchain and cryptocurrency infrastructure. So I think we have a lot of good things to look forward to, but the opportunities still need to be cleanly explained so people are aware they haven't missed the boat, that there are places that they can engage and learn and interact and not feel like, because they didn't get into Bitcoin back, in the early days, they don't have any opportunities. So.
It's wonderful. And thank you so much, Linda, for bringing that highlight. I now would love to shift it a little differently, which is really getting Zara to tell us about the work that she does. And to me, she's my rock star because she actually builds these things.
Thank you so much. Before I actually dig into that, following what Helen was saying about the blockchain in healthcare, right now I'm actually a blockchain architect and a blockchain team lead of a project in telemedicine in Latin America, which is giving back the power of ownership of your healthcare data to the patients. And not only patients are not spending a penny to be visited by a doctor, but they're actually making money by doing that. So basically, it is now for real translating blockchain to internet of value, because throughout our daily activities, either through our activities or through spending money, we create some sort of value that are gone to waste. And some of that could be your healthcare data, right? And that data is basically your data. And now, what if that it gives the power of making money with it to you? You have to be able to be able to make money with it, and also be part of the economy that is behind the scene, actually running around your data, and you're not aware of it, right? So just to complete what Helen was saying, and that which was absolutely true. But for me, to be honest, from the very beginning, I was extremely interested in blockchain technology, because I never looked at blockchain as a technology, but as a tool that is going to make the world more fair. I just thought this is what is actually going to bring fairness to the world, because I come from a developing country. I come originally from Iran. I lived through a lot of unfairness that the rest of the world, and a lot of people in many different countries are living through it. Especially being a woman, I was a lot of times discriminated, and I have seen all of this. And so blockchain became that tool for me that I thought, this is a tool I'm going to use to make the world more fair. And looking at, I told Jean-Pierre that I want to talk about blockchain in human trafficking, because this was a project that we were actually talking about with an NGO called Free the Slaves in the United States a few years ago. And just to look at some statistics, 40 million people annually are victims of modern slavery. That's 4 times Sweden, the country that I live in today. So 4 times Sweden annually are victims of modern slavery. More than 1 million of these are directly victims of human trafficking. And more than 71% of these are women and girls. And the sad thing is that only 0.04% of them are identified. We don't know the rest of them. We don't know who they are. We don't know what happened to them. We don't know their stories. We don't know nothing about them. And these are all either they don't have an identification, or they are, refugees fleeing from conflict zones, that they lost their identification, and that makes them, the risk group to be the victim of human trafficking. Or often these victims, their identifications are taken away by their employers from them. So they basically take their physical identification away from them. And that is exactly where blockchain can be that tool to make that change. And by simply just giving them the power of having immutable virtual identification based on their biometrics. And that means there is no longer that mean of control who is the employer. No matter if the employer is actually going to take your identification away, to throw it away, you always have a borderless digital virtual identification that does not allow you to be an unidentified victim of human trafficking. And that is exactly what we need to use blockchain for. And I think it's amazing that blockchain is, of course, enabling a lot of us, especially women, to create economy, but also the fact that it's saving lives, it makes me more excited to work with it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think that, though, I wish you would talk a little bit more about, what it is like, because I think that one of the things I believe working in this space in technology is actually very exciting and fulfilling in one point, but also it gives you an opportunity to actually be able to, I hope, balance a little bit the mothering, because you are a technologist, which means you can be sitting at 4 o'clock in the morning doing something while the kids are playing. And I think we need more women in this space. My point of view is this is a technology where we're solving problem in a collaborative way, because it's not centralized. It's about me. It's about me putting my stamp on something. While in blockchain technology, you have to figure out who are the collaborators, how do you incentivize them, and then be able to get them to provide you information so that you can enrich not only the goal, the overall goal, but each person's interaction. And I think that this is a space where we need more women developing, because what we have seen in development is this fundamental issue of something being made which doesn't take into account the need of women. Like there's the Apple issue that's very well spoken about, forgetting to ask about the monthly. But I think that's one which is glaring. But as we are, like when we look, I'm probably incorrect, but I think women live longer than men.
We hope so.
And we know so. If we look at it. Anyway. So with that, we need solutions. I think distributed ledger technology is here to stay. Maybe not in its format that we have right now, but if we think CBDC, that is going to affect how we women, which usually have to take care of the family budget, have to use this digital currency. So if it's not designed for us, then I don't know how.
You're muted, Jean-Louis.
Sorry, there was a lot of noise coming in the background. So would love to have your perspective of how, if we young women here, how do you actually get into the space? What do you do? Because it can be undaunting.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, in terms of balancing out, I always say that I'm a blockchain architect. I work with the technology that decentralizes power of control, decentralizes, it's about decentralization. So I might as well decentralize home control as well, right? Just give power to some to my husband, some to my daughter, actually. So decentralize the tasks. So that life goes on much better when it's decentralized and distributed, right? So I actually do that and get them involved a lot. So that makes my life easier. My daughter she just turned 9 and she has invested in Bitcoin. She has invested her weekly pocket money in Bitcoin, and that makes my life much easier because the only thing I need to do is only to show her the graphs rather than going to toy store every weekend and having to buy something, right? And she also gets educated. So you just have to be a little creative and with that. But bringing young girls is very typical for us. I would say no matter what gender we have, female or males, as we grow in our career, we get busier and busier with work, and we get more occupied, and we kind of also somehow we either forget the path that we came from, the challenges we face, or we just don't find enough time. I always make sure that I mentor at least 2 or 3 young girls simultaneous. I always have them. I usually have 6 weeks programs for them, like that. I go through this, and then okay, now you're good to go, and then I take in new girls for mentorships. I absolutely believe that really helps, and I have seen really good growth with girls. And I also always make sure that I have my own mentor, because that is how I help myself to grow as well in the industry.
Thank you. And I would love to take it to Roslyn. And Roslyn is on the ground doing some amazing work all over Africa. And I would love you to talk to us about what you're doing.
All right, thank you so much. So with PesaBase, we're focused on the remittance space. So just connecting payments from the Australia to East African corridor. Reason why we picked that, even as a fintech startup, is that we got the license for Austrac way before any of the other countries that we're serving. So we found ourselves actually caught in between a space where blockchain as a technology is giving us permissionless innovation, that we could build the app, we could set up the servers. We partnered with Cello and several other blockchain ecosystem partners. But on the other hand, since we're still handling part of our application or service in fiat, would need the remittance license actually to operate. So I would speak to especially those who are in the blockchain ecosystem and finding themselves on the forefront of innovation, but stopped in one way or another by regulation. So in my journey as an economist, and even what I've seen both in especially East and West Africa, because it's been in the public domain that the governments have come out to issue cautionary notices against the use of cryptocurrencies, and in one way or another halted the uptake or use or the support for emerging technologies. So in both countries, then you'd find that, or you'd expect people to draw back from this because there's no regulatory support. And even as you mentioned with NFTs earlier, it's that people would want to do this, but they know that you're on your own, and very few people have the risk appetite to step forward anyway. So on one hand, there's that, but on the other hand, there's a landscape, or there's a message of hope that's coming. Not just PesaBase as a startup, but a lot of blockchain projects that are hosted in Kenya and different African countries, which are still building communities, which are still empowering their peers. And in each of these communities, you will find that where there is heavy government like regulation or barriers, then the communities then come back to teach each other and find ways to interact peer-to-peer. So especially like for Nigeria, a lot of the volumes that were going through maybe banks or banking off-ramps then came back to peer-to-peer peer-to-peer rails, such that if I needed to send Genevieve money, then I would just probably do that through her phone number or through her email, right? Now, that's, I would say, one of the most exciting things about Africa as a strong emerging market. And this in a context of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is, it's already made Africa like the largest free trade area. But you find that we are yet to see the volumes, the tractions, and of course, this could take like up to 5 years. But with a population of literally 19 years old, it just means that a lot of us are very, very young, like really, really young. And now we're not just seeing blockchain as a futuristic technology that's so far out there. It's literally the pillar of hope for quite a lot of people who now are not going to get income through formal work opportunities. One statistic actually pointed out that by the time someone graduates from campus, then they might have to wait for at least 5 years to get a job, which is really not workable if you have to support your family. And as Zara had mentioned earlier about, the pain of oppression and unfairness, injustice, it's that a lot of young people then are finding that economic empowerment first, which then gives them the platform and the leverage to express or voice other issues. So for us, blockchain is, I would say, something that's right on time, that a lot of young people are finding their means, that you don't have to have a degree to start crypto trading. I mean, just an account. And as you've said, with the kids already earning through blockchain games, kids already saving through, their weekly savings and getting that in Bitcoin. It's that we are already we're already seeing and speaking about the next generation being part of this evolution. And it's, I love this quote that the revolution will not be televised, because a lot of these young people then are not going to announce that, hey, I made gains with Bitcoin, or hey, I made gains with Ethereum. No, they'll just be like, I found this cool game and I'm earning money from it. And that's it. They'll maybe announce that later on in Instagram or whatever. But, this is the generation we're in right now. And those are some of my thoughts as being on the ground. On one hand, it's the regulation that could kill the industry. But on the other hand, it's the innovation that's every day, simplifying language, taking this thing to the village. Platforms like Celo making blockchain mobile for the masses. It's that more people are going to be able to transact without so many barriers to them actually doing what they need to get done.
Thank you, Rosalind, so much. And I am very fascinated by some of the work that Celo is doing. Not only are they working with you in terms of the remittances, but also one of the things that I've seen is the project that they're doing in Kenya, where they allow for students to do the menial task that a lot of company needs, like matching information, things that you can do on a cell phone, and then allowing them to have cash, which is, I think, because for me, my thing is that I think financial inclusion is not about only a bank account. Yeah. You need to be able to put money in that bank account, whatever kind of money that is. So when there are certain numbers who talk about the number of accounts that have been opened in India, but if those accounts have no money in there, what's the point? You haven't made somebody's life better.
Exactly.
Yeah. So go ahead.
One more thought that I can add to that. Within, I would say, the last give or take 5 years, initially you had very, very scattered crypto enthusiasts. So you'd have the occasional person. Actually, Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum, came to one of our leading universities around 2015. Well, by that time, when I heard about that, it's when I was doing my research around blockchain. So the communities were extremely scattered. But over time then, scams came in and ruined the reputation of cryptocurrencies real badly, because a lot of people lost life savings. They lost, some had even borrowed loans to get into crypto because they had been sold the guaranteed returns narrative back when it was hype. And that really dented the reputation around crypto. For me, the people I would mention Bitcoin had been like, no, just stop it right there. I don't want to hear anything about it. And it had to be, again, me telling them, you might have met or run into someone who scammed you because they promised you returns, didn't ever talk about the risks, and well, now there's loss, but this cycle within crypto is going to come again. So right now, we have way more in terms of numbers, traders, educators, and really it's a far much more success story. It's a far much better success story right now than I would say 3 years ago. So we've gone literally from scams and despair to traders and income, and far more success stories than before.
Hey, thank you so much. And as I promised at the beginning of the session, it's actually getting late in Europe, and Kate, Helen, Zara, and maybe Rosalind will stay with us. She never told me if she would or not. Are going to leave us pretty soon. So if you see them disappear, please understand that is part of the balancing act of being a mother and it being late in the evening. There were a few questions, and I've seen that you guys have answered them on the chat. Someone wanted to know from Kate, what are the games your son plays? You have actually also provided which is really great. She did 2 of them now. Linda, Kate, and Ash Costello, who's not with us, have all work done. Helen, I don't think there were a question about any question for you per se. Zara, I think Helen answered for you, which is, how does your daughter invest? And I think one of the questions I would have for you, Helen, is it something that you can use in any jurisdiction, or are there limitations? You're mute.
Aware of Pig, I know, that does a kind of child-friendly cryptocurrency app. I'm not sure how many jurisdictions it covers, so you'd have to check up on that. But I think that's one of the few at the moment. It's kind of like meant to be a digital piggy bank idea. So I think those are really great in the sense that the child can get to grips with all of the sort of aspects, a bit like we have in the UK something called Go Henry, which is a bit like a debit card, but the parent can control, how much goes onto it. And they also see when the child is spending money somewhere, which, you could say is the surveillance state, but as a parent, you still want to know, So I think just sort of a way to just give it to them in their hands as well, since that's the whole idea, is for them to be empowered with it, with the limitations, obviously, of parents to keep things safe for them. But I think it's a really cool concept. Before I go, Zara, I wanted to add on to what Zara said as well, human trafficking. I think, obviously, having a blockchain solution is so important for actually preventing the kind of mechanisms for human trafficking, but also going back to what we were saying about the need for more women in tech. And I'm a big advocate. I think most of the women in here are for more women in tech and more women in blockchain specifically. And many of us are part of a group called the Bigger Pie, which does a lot of work to spread the word, spread opportunities, speaking opportunities, job opportunities, and so on for women in space. But the reason for mentioning it in relation to human trafficking is I was speaking to another female colleague today who's working on getting women skilled up in developing skills and digital skills in different developing countries. And one of the reasons for that, she told me, was that it will actually prevent the risk of them being drawn into modern slavery or being drawn into human trafficking, because they'll actually have money and skills. So they have the power to not be vulnerable and not be prey to people who may offer them opportunities for money. And if they've got their own money, they won't be tempted to go down those perhaps dangerous paths. So, there's a prevention aspect in terms of just preventing criminals behaving in a malign way, but there's also the empowerment aspect of, if you've got money and you've got more power as an individual, you're less likely to be at risk. And we know these people always prey on the vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point around the use of cryptocurrency, because we think of a good cryptocurrency as being censorship resistant, and we've always thought about that as being in terms of borders, governments, whatever. But actually, censorship resistance in the nature of you can keep your own funds private and safe because they are yours, they are sovereign. So that's a really, really good point, Helen.
Yeah, and I wanted to showcase the shirt that I'm wearing because it's Bloom Today. It's a TV show that is aired globally and comes from a book called Bloom in the Dark, that is the stories of women who have been victimized and their road to healing and becoming ex-victims. And I think blockchain is a really important part of helping empower women. And, you know, in supply chain management, different things that we can help target those areas where trafficking occurs. You know, there's so many areas that blockchain can be a support. And, you know, just starting from having that personal wallet and knowing that you're not alone. And there are people out there that want to be supporting and helpful, and, you know, having that community. I love the bigger pie. I love Women in Blockchain Talks, the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. There's you know, the Crypto Chicks. There's so many that are working to create community. And when you become and feel a part and understand the resources that are available to you, it is empowering, and it helps people get past that sense of being victimized and gives them the tools to do life differently so they become ex-victims. So I appreciate the role that all of you ladies play in that. And there's so much good to keep bringing forward for a better world. Yep.
Yes, thank you. And Zara, I'm going to ask a question. So Pigsy is what your daughter uses, correct?
Well, she's not using that at the moment, but I will definitely.
Love it.
That would even make it easy to come to me and ask how much her money now worth.
Decentralize her even more.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So as I promised, this was, we get not 5 minutes, a 2-minute break. And I think it's probably getting up the chair and stretching out after, I'd say, almost an hour. And ladies, you're more than welcome to stay as long as you want. And as I've said, fully understand if you have.
Unfortunately, I have to drop off in 10 minutes because I have other engagements.
So
yes.
why don't we have you then, Elena? So we did half a second, guys. Go ahead, Elena.
I wanted to say thank you so much for having me. I do have to go now, but I could stay for hours and listen to this conversation. So thanks for having us very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you for giving me the word. So I, ladies, very much amazed with the work that you're doing. I don't think we touched today on the difficulties on the barriers that are actually preventing people of using blockchain nowadays. Because to be honest, right now, it's been used as an investment vehicle very well. And also it's been used as a DeFi, right? So that people using a DeFi instruments to gain their income, or supplement their income. But really for the business, it's not been in use because there are lots of barriers, like gas fees, for example. If you take for one, right, each transaction costs you $100 right now to implement. So this is not quite feasible for blockchain to be used, right? And of course, the speed of the transactions. This is something that also been always raised, and something that maybe Ethereum is not even ready right now to process. And we know that Ethereum probably the blockchain to go for the majority of people, because it's maybe the most common one and the most people educated in that platform. Besides, you also need to have blockchain developers that are really costly. In order for you to start the project, you probably all started the projects, and you know that you have to pay arm and leg for the blockchain developers to develop this even basic stuff for the blockchain. Smart contracts is even simple. Smart contracts have to have a developer on staff to do it, and they are very, very expensive. And so therefore there are all these barriers, and how do we overcome it? So this is something that I was thinking for a long time, and so this is something that we made the progress of tackling these issues. And that's why we, in CryptoChicks, actually, we had one of these startups joining us, which is Metis DAO, and with that idea to tackle all those issues. And this is something I took on, and I became the CEO of this startup in order to actually address those issues and do it quite successfully right now. So we, gas fees, like we're building a platform. We have scientists, we have developers. Right now, we went to the alpha testnet with the platform which protects users from the gas fees. Which also make it usable, so you don't have to have any blockchain knowledge. You can just come to the platform, create a company in a couple of clicks, and like create your profile and start doing business with other people. Plus the reputation power, something that is very, I think, common in a blockchain practice, right? So this is like, because we're tracking everything on the blockchain, reputation power is something that has been looked after, and this is also addressed in the platform that we are building. Every person that comes to the platform gets an NFT passport, and in this passport, all the actions are recorded. It means that you will not be able to buy or the fake review or something like you do in other centralized platform. For example, if you went to Fiverr or Upwork, there are lots of people who bought user reviews, right? So with the blockchain, it's, of course, it can be tackled, and that's what we also do in the platform that we build. So yes, the gas fees, the usability, the reputation power, and also the easiness of again, so we right now working on use cases and implementing them one by one, where you can, for example, if you would like to open your company and tokenize it and fundraise using your token, like majority of the blockchain company does, you can do it in a couple of clicks, right? So you don't need to have a developer. You don't need to have you don't need to have a knowledge in order to do it. So this is something that we are doing. And then recently we onboarded Lucia Gallardo, if you know her, so she's the leader of Emerge, and she's very connected in UN and UNICEF. And this is the organization that we plan to work with and provide the capability for people who fall out of the system, for example, the refugees. And there is, for example, lots of Venezuelan refugees right now who are very educated, but since they are not in the system, they cannot find jobs, they cannot, do anything basically. And this is something that we are planning to provide them with the platform where they can find freelance jobs or the full-time jobs. So this is that's the work that we're doing right now. And yeah, so I wonder how you in your projects, how you tackle those issues like gas fees.
So I think that we need to also then talk about the fact that not every project will have gas fees. We will have different costs. I am using a DLT platform because to me, blockchain in terms of public has a place to be, but it is really about a value exchange. What I do is tracking data to extract value from that data. So we went with R3. Of course, we have the same thing. And anything that's new and shiny is expensive. Mm-hmm. So Betty just asked the question. So blockchain is a distributed ledger technology. It is what you would call probably the killer app and the one that gained the most reputation. It is based on this idea of a peer-to-peer exchange of value. I send you information, and once you've received that money, I can't take it back. Versus what I do with my platform is I allow farmers, and those are men and women, to have an asset that belongs to them, and that asset track to its journey. So I do an asset transfer. Let's say I give it to Kate and I ask for Kate to bring it somewhere, and she's got certain things, parameters that she has to do on those. If she fails to do them, then there is a penalty, and we have smart contract which have been written to take that penalty away from her. She's got a timing she's got to get it done in. She doesn't get that timing, it's a demerit. Once she actually does her work and we finally get it to the marketplace, everybody gets paid at the same time because now we have extracted value. I'm not going to lie, it's been very expensive, it's been very difficult at times, but I think that anything that we're building, which is on the blockchain, because we're now involving it is not just like you do an application, and I'm hard-headed. I decided it had to be all data on the blockchain, which some people don't believe in. Using the R3 Corda, I was able to compartmentalize data. So this is a data play. Let's get to the reality of blockchain. Blockchain is going to be a data play. If I can trust data, I then don't need to keep checking that data. And now I can layer machine learning, AI, and start doing a lot of data information. And I can go back to a farmer. I don't need to give them all that blah, 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 but just give them information that can help them in the work that they do. And that is the future, really. I'm so glad that we're finally, the NFT has brought in something which is talking about machine learning and AI and getting people to understand if you can trust the data, then you can move forward. But you're so right, Elena. And that's why I'm encouraging women to go in there. Right now, you make pretty good men. This is like SAP at the beginning. When SAP started, you were getting paid $5,000 a week. And that was the equivalent of maybe $20,000 today. So I think that we need to really look at this. But I'd like to actually now also shift it. And thank you so much for your contribution, and get Dr. Anino Emua not only to introduce herself, but also to talk to us about the work that she does.
I am so sorry. I need to leave as well, but it looks like there is a question for me.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Anino, but I'll just, there is a question in Q&A section saying to Zara, how do we grow in our career to be blockchain tech lead like where you are? And I think what they meant is blockchain architect, probably, because to be a blockchain architect, well, I started my career as with my technical background, but as you grow in your technical skills, being an architect is not only about your technical skills. As much as you have to have all the technical skills and be familiar with different blockchain platforms, because there are also, they're evolving on daily basis, and there are new blockchains coming into the picture on daily basis as well. So you have to really make sure you keep yourself updated technically, but you need to have the leadership skills. You also need simultaneously to make sure that you develop yourself in leadership skills and be able as an architect to translate business value to technical specifications and to create that holistic overview picture of a business impact through the technology. So that is what the architect does, right? To understand the business needs, because at the end of the day, technology is as good as the impact that it has on the business world. So you have to understand the business needs very well. And for that, you need to improve your business skills, your leadership skills, etc., and then translate that to technical specifications and basically build that roadmap and lead the team to make sure that you deliver that product that you're designing. So you're designing a solution. You're not designing a technical software. You're designing a solution. And for that, you need both technical skills and leadership and business skills for sure to develop it. So that was my quick answer to that. And with that, I'm going to thank you all, ladies. And thank you, everyone. And good night. I'm going to now feed my child and make sure that she's in bed soon. Thank you.
I'm going to have to go and do the same.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. So nice.
And I absolutely love your voice, Kate. I just love listening to you. I'm like, oh my God, that voice.
We'll make it happen again.
We will.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheerio, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. And so
Bye-bye.
now, without further ado, Dr. Anino, if you would please introduce yourself and also tell us a bit more about your work and how you are rocking the world beside Clubhouse. You're mute.
Right? How is that? Okay.
Better, thank you.
Hello, everybody, and delighted to be here. Great to be on this panel with the amazing ladies. I have been sitting very quietly and listening to the very, very interesting discussions. My name is Anino Emua. I am from Nigeria, but I actually live here in France. I am the strategy and financial advisor of Avondis Consulting, which is a company I founded a few years ago. And we also create communities of women in business leadership, both regional and global communities. So we have, for example, 100 Women at Davos, which was created alongside the World Economic Forum a few years ago. And this is a community of impact-driven women leaders. We also work with women founders. We have seminars and leadership events, and we do everything to make sure that women can succeed at the highest level. And so we are very much involved in the D&I space. I work on policy as well. I am a member of the expert advisory group for the Institute of Directors in the UK, and I sit on several boards of technology companies and also smaller and medium-sized businesses. So that is me in a few seconds.
Wonderful. So we'd love to hear a bit more about your work and
Sure.
By what you're doing in the blockchain space.
Right. Now, in terms of the blockchain, my interest in blockchain emerged from my work as a banker. I started out my work in banking as a corporate banker. And then, I found out very quickly at a young age, I was making huge loans, right, for big businesses. And I found out very quickly that smaller businesses didn't have access to loans quite as easily, and this stopped them from growing. And that is what led me to do my research in terms of financing entrepreneurship. I'd lived in several countries in Africa and Europe at the time, and going into that space of SMEs led me obviously to fintech as years went on, because with fintech, you are able now to plug the gaps that were difficult for banks to plug. And blockchain is starting, it hasn't gotten there yet, but blockchain is starting to create a platform that will facilitate transacting in that space. That is for smaller businesses, for people who are excluded from the financial sector. And that, I think, is the most exciting thing. I guess we'll talk about it later, but things like in terms of cost transfer, value, and where does value reside in that whole chain, and bringing value to the people who are creating it and who are lower down the chain. So there are a lot of applications. I do a lot of speaking engagements in blockchain, and especially in terms of working to make sure we have more and more women in that sector, really, because it's growing and it's big, and we need to have more and more women in the sector. But I guess I can talk more about that later. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, you may. Of course, this is a great conversation. This was more sort of like to bring in, and I think that's absolutely amazing. We were waiting for Anu to come and join us and talk to us about what she's doing, but somehow she doesn't want to come on stage. She finally.
There she is.
There she is.
So on cue.
2 minutes.
On cue.
2 minutes.
On cue. Anu, why don't you introduce yourself, please? And also, we would love to hear about Sheconomy and also the work that you're doing. And I think it really does cross that whole idea of now, how do we actually put in practice?
So I am Anu Bardwaj. I'm the founder of Sheconomy, Crypto for Kids, Crypto Queens, this platform, Amplifying Her Voice. I just like to create things that work and that people find value in. Sheconomy is a podcast app. And Rosalind, when I was in Kenya a few years ago, like I was so amazed by all of the women that I came across in Africa, like how fast they were adopting crypto. And I'm sure that's the same, in Nigeria, like how people are just learning about it and picking it up because they see a need. But in other parts of the world, there's a lot of confusion, especially because we get so technical. And it's a WTF, it's like the technology is there, but it's a WTF. Like, how does this apply to me, and how do I make it work? Because we don't have the same problems that you do in Africa. So what I had decided to do is create this application where when you listen and learn to podcasts, any topic, whether it's like vaginas, private equity, breast cancer awareness, any kind of content, we've got 300 shows in English, Spanish, and Chinese. When you like, share, or follow, you get tokens. And these tokens then get deposited into an account, and then you can decide whether it goes into a wallet of your choice, right? And then you can spend it, save it, invest it, donate it, whatever you want to do with it, but ultimately it gives you the power. It's not just the power to the people that created the content, the people that are listening to the content, but ultimately it's power in the data. Like, once we find out what topics are of interest, is it entrepreneurship? Sorry, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Is it entrepreneurship? Is it health? Is it wellness, professional development? What is it that we're interested in? And when Anino and I met at the 100 Women at Davos a year ago, I had been talking about, how do we bring different currencies into the mix and introduce them to women? And we just started talking about this wallet, but then I said it needs a practical application, a very practical application, so there's mass adoption that happens. So ultimately, I cashed out my daughter's college fund when I came back from the World Economic Forum and said, I could put her through school, or I can take this money and address the 900 million girls that are out there that don't have Google Classroom or Zoom School or any of these cool technologies. What if they could listen and learn? What if they could listen and learn, and they can earn tokens, and their moms can earn tokens? And this has become more and more important now because, you do have a lot of families afflicted by pandemic who are in the bottom billion. You do have a lot of girls that are being compromised, and we know the situation. If they don't go to school, what happens to them? They get married, they get trafficked, they get in compromising situations. So this is a way to ensure the safety of our girls, and not just the girls, but the women, and not just any woman, every woman. Whether you've gone to school or not gone to school, you can listen and learn. And more importantly, you can share your story, which is all of you people that are on this conference today. You're going to have your story shared with people that may or may not have access to Hopin, may or may not have access to a computer, may or may not have access to, a digital library on YouTube. You'll get to hear it on audio. And so now we've bridged that gap, and we applied for a COVID solutions grant from the Transform Fund. Islamic Development Bank gave us $150,000, and we won the grant out of 5,000 applicants. 30 winners, 7 women, 1 Hindu right here. And so we got the grant, and this is what kept us going. And we said, we got this one sign of hope. Let's keep running. And then we applied for the SDG Impact Accelerator from the Republic of Turkey, got a spot in their accelerator, and entered the People's Republic of Bangladesh. And just last Saturday, like 4 or 5 days ago, we just signed a contract with the United Nations. And this is big news because our app is free, and we're going to get these out into the refugee camps. So people talk about blockchain for tech. I got to raise millions and billions of dollars to make this work. No, there's simple ways to take tech that works, that's applied to people that they want and need, get it out there, prove your concept, and that's how you scale and grow your tech. Didn't do an ICO, didn't do any of this fancy funding, just went straight and said, this is the tech, this is the simplicity, this is the target market, and let's run as fast as we can. So Africa, here we come, no nonsense. You can download our app for free, Sheconomy. It's on Android, iOS, and we built it on a $10 mobile phone on a new platform called KaiOS. So KaiOS is in Nigeria. It's in Ghana, I believe, Rwanda, South Africa, in across Africa, Latin America. So we said, it's not tech that we're building for me and you and everybody on this call. It's for those people that can't say what they need or want. It's for them. So now we're building for them in hopes to address the rest of us. So that's Sheconomy.
Thank you so much, Anu. And we are coming to the top of the hour, and I would like to actually introduce the wonderful Linda Goetz, who is going to talk to us about really the work that she's doing and also how she's empowering so many in what I would call the most difficult space, which is logistics, to actually embrace this great technology.
Yeah, I know logistics has definitely been highlighted, and supply chain has been a pain point globally throughout this COVID timeframe, and having the spotlight shown on that has been very necessary. So I got to do that while I was leading the Blockchain Chamber, and we had a number of events that brought in bodies globally and have carried this conversation forward. And one of the things that we've recognized is the need for a unique global identifier for loads. And for that to be blockchain based, for that to be able to be interconnected into blockchain infrastructure that's already existing is paramount. If we can, and this goes back to the conversation that we had earlier about dealing with trafficking. If you can uniquely identify a load, and then connect that to the driver, tractor, trailer that's moving it, and you have your beginning and end point, you can actually create a validation of, is what is said to be in that load really in that load? Or have we added 5 different bodies to that load, and now this is being used as a transportation opportunity for child traffickers? Those types of things are so necessary. And that unique identifier, that dynamic matching of driver, tractor, trailer, load, it's good for the environment. It cuts down on carbon emissions from empty miles. Like right now, I've seen different numbers, so I don't want to put it on a very closed bracket, but between 15 and 33% of miles currently driven in the United States are empty miles. So that's inefficient beyond. I mean, that's such waste, that's such pollution, that's unnecessary. And the collaboration that's necessary, the infrastructure that blockchain brings, where you have an ability to have a trustless network, a true ecosystem of players that might be considered competitors, but having them come together to solve for this bigger problem is something that we've been working towards. And we fortunately have a standards enabling patent that was filed back in 2003 and is good through 2025, that is actually for dynamic freight matching for driver, tractor, trailer, load, digital connection. And I'm very hopeful that with the standards and the impetus to be in compliance with those standards, we're going to be able to take that very, very low number that I talked about earlier, the amount of GDP that is actually, U.S. digital. We should be able to raise that significantly, because right now we only have about 7% of loads in the U.S. being matched with dynamic freight matching. And if we can get that number into the 30s and 40s, hopefully to 100%, we're really going to be able to have a better world. And, showcasing that it can be done well. China's already beginning to do that, and they're tying it to their central digital currency as well. So the infrastructure, the benefits that are created in efficiencies, in solving for economic pain points, drivers being paid efficiently. There's so many things that are impacted here, and we're just trying to take what we have, connect it with the best possible technology. We're looking at not only blockchain, but taking that, what I believe is the next step, into a quad ledger technology. So blockchain, many people are aware, we had single ledger entry, and that was like cuneiform. You had this many sheaves of grain and it was traded for, this lump of whatever. That has transitioned to double ledger entry, which is what the majority of the world is still working on. And blockchain brought triple ledger entry, and we have the time stamping, that's enabled by the Bitcoin blockchain and, the efficiencies that come there. But when we have a quad ledger entry, where we have the ability for us to, as physical human beings with physical stuff, to be represented in the digital world and verified with time and space, you create a quad ledger. You have a universal framework of things that's enabled through the technology, and it exists today. And blockchain, I am a huge proponent of the tech. It's just a thing, right? It's a thing that can help connect. It's a glue for infrastructure. And I believe we're going to have digital agency in a way that has never before been enabled. And the more women that we have building that out in supporting implementation of these emerging tech, the more we're going to have a holistic view, taking into consideration the nuances of culture. And there's a need for women in this space, and for every single one of us. And I love what Anu is talking about, with that education and the opportunity to have true connectivity globally, where people are learning from each other and earning in that environment as well. I mean, we are poised not just to have the fourth or even the fifth industrial revolution. We're poised to leapfrog into the seventh industrial revolution. And I believe women are going to be a huge part of making that possible. And so I felt like I got on a soapbox there, but thank you for the opportunity to have it. And just very happy to be working with an amazing team at DFM Data Core, and the tech stack of companies like Neurosciences, and thankful to be able to take the last 9 years and take that learning and that perspective and help be part of a global community that's able to support each other through this transition timeframe.
Thank you, Linda. Amina, go ahead. Jump in.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I'd like to just continue on from Linda and on the issue of diversity in the industry. The first thing that we need to talk about when we're sitting here with all women, we might forget how few women are actually in the industry. The World Economic Forum says approximately, figures aren't clear, it could be as low as 5%. And at best, 20-something%. And this is exactly. Now, this is a big issue. And the reason is, why is this a big issue? The first thing is that we know that diversity in leadership improves the performance of businesses. We know that it improves society. We know that it improves economies. We know that it improves peace. It improves absolutely every measure, including men's health, when it comes to leadership. And this is a huge problem that we're facing. And if we don't address this problem, the issues we are having already with diversity would actually exponentially increase, right, over the next few decades. Now, the issue is, how are we going to address this and make sure that we have sufficient women in leadership? And leadership is important, right? Because you look at the industry, but leadership is important because that is where decisions are made. That is where we create the environment for businesses, right, to construct the products and services and the, shall we say, the value also for women, okay? And so if we don't have leadership addressed, we might be fighting a losing battle. And that is the crux of the matter, right? I believe, especially in blockchain, how can we get more women in? But I think that there's a lot of focus in terms from the exterior, that is, in terms of, for example, roles like mining, for example, like data mining, for example, computer engineering. Those, of course, are key roles. We need to get women in there, right? But there are many, many, many more roles. And I think this is where, as women in leadership, we can work to make sure that we bring other women into the industry and, importantly, create the environment that would allow women to excel in terms of leadership, because that is where we get the difference once we have women in leadership.
So, yeah, I absolutely, sorry, Anu. I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Dr. Anino. And what I have actually been doing, this is going into the second year, and I think that I would encourage many more people to be able to do that, is working with Consensus Academy. They have actually given over 100 last year scholarship to women who are developers to do their bootcamp. And many of those women would not be able to afford it. But I think that one of the things that I found which was missing is then creating the opportunity for them to use those skills. So we need to all come together. So I actually had someone come to me and say, can I recommend somebody? Women who are in the space right now of doing audits of smart contract are overworked because there's so much opportunity in the NFT. But then I thought about those 20 women that I personally worked with last year and realized that they're not in the space. How do we get them in the space? And what is really the key is getting them to participate in the hackathon and to get beyond the studies and practice. So it's either practicing through hackathon or we creating the space for them to come and work in our organization, because many of us are creating those organizations so that they can learn and they can feel much more comfortable. I'm talking about women in Haiti and women in South Africa. Sometimes they come in from a part of the society, that society, where they are marginalized. So their ability to feel that they can be a leader is going to be a bit difficult for them. But so we need to give them that boost and push them and take them along for the ride. And so I really think that all of us should really, as Zara said, look to mentor, look to invigorate the space by giving more women an opportunity to either be in the business side or the technology side and understand what this is all about. So Anu, you wanted to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, so we're going to have a session called Satoshi is Female later this afternoon. It's at 6:15, and many of the people that were on this session, they had time constraints and so on and so forth. So we piled everybody on here. It's more advanced blockchain. It's people that are running organizations, have technology that's out in market. And again, these are like the race car drivers of the blockchain industry who are women on this panel. So they're like super fast and they've got the tech and, you know, are doing some amazing things and have figured out like what they want to do in the space. And then we have another session called Crypto Queens. Again, these are the women who are setting up funds. These are women who are leading organizations, who are advising governments on crypto legislation, policy, because there's a lot of different aspects to the space of blockchain. It's not just, oh, here's a cool tech and you guys should all get in. How do you get in? Where do you get in? Right? So ultimately, we have the different layers, and Satoshi is Female is like very basic. It's like, okay, here are some organizations. Here are some things that you can do if you're interested in this space. We all know we need to get in it. I want to get in the space industry. How do I get in the space industry? Do I build a rocket? What do I do? So now you've got all the rocket makers in this session. Maybe we need to, yep, exactly. Blockchain. Oh, wow. We're going to talk, girlfriend. We're going to talk about this. Is that yours? Did you write this book?
No. This was the George Pullen and Samson Williams. Okay. And it's one that there's this version, and then this is one of the
wow. Yeah,
it's one of the 5 limited editions. So yeah, it's a fun space to be in for sure.
So the thing is, in this session, you're going to get people that are coming in and building the cutting edge tech. So if I told you, there you go, Bitcoin money. So we need to go very Cointelligence. Yes, I know Cointelligence. That's Anya Veen, right? Or are you working with him? Yeah. So
yeah, I'm on the advisory there. Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, he's
a good guy. So he's like a father of 5 kids. I know him from another life, but ultimately, you know, this space has been building for the past few years. The women that you see here, majority of them, Rosalind. I mean, I think you guys started mining in Kenya like the women that I spoke to when I was in Nairobi, I said, tell me about what you're doing in crypto. They're like, oh yeah, we started making our own crypto, mining our own crypto. And I'm like, this is beyond what I expected for Africa, but it is what it is. But for the purposes of this conference, this virtual summit, these discussions, we're going to have a very simple level. And I'm looking at the questions. Everyone's like, where do I find this? Where do I find that? You can say, like, I work in internet. I build the internet. I am the creator of, cybersecurity on the internet or whatever it may be. But ultimately, we're gonna take it down a notch. And for those people that want to get more deeper into how crypto is invested, how you make money and things like that, go to the Crypto Queen session. But if you want to just talk about the basics and look at different organizations getting women onboarded, come to Satoshi's Female, and that's where you're going to learn. Because you can't mix everything. It's so big.
Anu. Thanks, Anu. We are at the top of the hour, and it has been great. And I would like to give Rosalind and also Dr. Emua a chance to say if you have any last words. It's been a pleasure having you guys on this panel with me, and I wanted to give you an opportunity. Rosalind?
Thank you so much. It's such a robust panel, and as you can tell, there are different issues that we have passion for, but they have a measure of convergence, right? So right when Zara spoke about identity as a use case and how that ties into logistics, how that ties into our economic empowerment, how that ties into our different areas, it's that we have the ability, we have the capability to actually make this work for our time. And one of the other panelists, I'm sorry, I forgot who, but she said that, blockchain has been perceived as something that's not made for women. But I think we're at a space in time where we need to forget about blockchain being made for us, and instead us using this tool for our communities and for our work, really, because we are the ones to define and to give it definition, because blockchain is still, it's still a very nascent technology. It's barely, I would say, we haven't crossed the 15-year mark. We're still the first 10 years, really. So a lot of people are learning. A lot of people are curious. And the best thing I love about this curiosity is that we can learn and give it the definition that it needs to have for that to have meaning. Within the curve of adoption, where you have the early adopters, the innovators, they're usually the minority. But when you're crossing over now to the early majority, is that a lot of translation has to be done. Now, translation simply comes back to language, and language is the key to people understanding that this tech is for that. A lot of the fear that governments and people, corporates and private sector, whichever sector you want to consider, a lot of the fear that's in that is simply not understanding. And you'll find that in any boardroom conversation that you will have, that there's a direct opposition to this technology, aside from, of course, cost implications and some of the other barriers within the tech itself. It's that there's just too much of the complexity that's there. But we have this opportunity in time to simply understand, translate it, make it safe for our grandmas, make it safe for our, our grandmas, grandpas, our babies who are just, the toddlers who are, all around us. And it's that in that element of translation, then it's going to be safe enough for the early majority to come. With that said, my encouragement to every young person, every woman, every man who's going to listen to this video, wherever you are in the world after this session, is that this is our opportunity. This is our time. Do not feel that blockchain is not for you. It actually is for you. We will live in a future where you won't have to learn blockchain for development. Just like now we're using the internet without thinking about, which protocol are we using? How fast is it? We're not really thinking about that. We are connected. We are speaking. We are sharing thoughts. So the future of blockchain is that I will be able to transact. I will be able to make my money. I'll be able to make and connect with a global community. Whereas internet was just the primary gateway, blockchain is just the next level of that. So think connection, communication, and with that, then our communities will be empowered.
Thank you so much. I think that's such a great note to go under. And Dr. Emua wanted to know if you had any last thoughts that you wanted to share, please.
Well, just to, finishing up from what Rosalind has said, and I think that when we look at blockchain as the solutions, that what are the problems that it is solving for us? And I think that that is where we see the power of it. And particularly in the finance world where I come from and from a developing country, is the issue of financial inclusion. And blockchain has the power to create a more financially inclusive society and economy. So everywhere, but particularly in Africa, and dealing with issues, for example, like identity. And identity documents have stopped people from getting accounts. And with the power of using biometrics, for example, blockchain can do that. It can also facilitate in terms of transacting and payments. The costs of payments are so low with blockchain. And so you can imagine the effect it has on people. We talked to Genevieve a little bit earlier about what's the point of opening an account if you don't have money in it. Certainly if your costs are much lower, then you certainly will have a lot more money in it. And I think there's even a use case of during the crisis where governments were able to transfer, make social payments using blockchain. So it has that power, the speed. And one thing that I think that is often, is probably not well understood is in financial inclusion is why are people, they are lower down the pyramid not interested? And one thing is in terms of trust. They lose the little money that they have, through unregulated and informal financial intermediaries, right? This can remove that. So it can create trust as well in the system because it's decentralized. Nobody owns it, not the government, not individuals. So these are the, these are the applications of blockchain that I think are critically important. And this is why I know with a lot of women who are interested in impact. And impact now, before impact meant it was not financially, it didn't have financial returns. That is not true, we know that. And so I think that, there's a lot to be done. We're still at the beginning, as Rosalind said, we're only 12 years into it, but this is a time to get into it because the power of impact really is critical.
Great, thank you. So Linda, do you have anything else you wanted to add, or are we going to close?
There's a keynote happening now at 2, Genevieve. I have to jump off. I have to be in that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anu.
Okay, bye.
So yeah, just to close out, Linda, I just wanted to make sure you, besides showing us books, which was perfect, I'm going to add some to my box. If there was anything else you wanted to share as a closing
just
thought.
Huge respect for you, Genevieve, and all of the ladies that are making an impact and really helping make blockchain be what is going to be a better world outcome for all of us and our children. And this is, I feel very privileged and blessed to be here.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure for all those people who are with us still. I know you're trying to run to the next session. It has been lovely to have these ladies. And I have to say, I learned a lot more. I'm going to tell my nephew that instead, my niece actually, instead of just doing stock, she can get pigots. And I am happy to say that I am also working in the space of digital identity in Africa. And that's something I think which will allow for really, to me, the 4IR is really not each one of the technology, but the fact that we can finally get them to work together. And the best thing is that we all get to work together. And so on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much and have a wonderful evening, afternoon, and hoping to see you soon.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Genevieve. Wonderful panel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So much.